We are being joined by the wonderful little cat named Stewie over for this tier list. This is going to be all of the tier 10 special destroyers in the game. So, ships that you can get for research points, steel, coal, or Santa crates. Basically, just all non tech tree tier 10s. And before I get into this, I just have a few quick disclaimers. First of all, the obvious, this is all just my opinion. If you disagree, you are free to do so. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. So if you disagree with some of these rankings on how I rate some of these ships, that is totally fine. Second is I do not currently own every single one of these. I either wasn't playing during the time it was available, I can't be bothered to regrind shit, or I just didn't feel like giving Wargaming money. And when I get to those types of ships that I might not own, I will be transparent that I do not own that ship. So don't take my word completely for more than what it's worth, because being able to play a ship will influence how one might perceive it. And I am going to be trying to be as objective as possible about this. And the last one is some of these ships are going to be getting changed in the upcoming patch. This is being recorded on January 26th, which is prior to patch 13.1, I believe it is. So a couple of these ships are going to be getting buffed, and when I get to those ships, I will address that. So, I've rambled on enough. We're going to start off with Summers. This is a steel ship, I believe, that's actually not been available for like a really long time. It's actually a relatively rare ship these days because it got pulled in I think like 2020 or 2021 or something like that. Uh, it's basically an American Shima, right? It has three quadruple torpedo launchers that fire gearing torpedoes. And it also has American smoke, which is always nice. And it has 5.8 conceal, not as good as Shima, but it's still competitive for its tier. It will outspot something like a Daring, for instance. It'll outspot a Grozavoy. It'll outspot a Z-52. It's really only once you get into like other torpedo-focused ships like Gearing, Shimakaze. If you want to like do multi-tiers, Yamagiri, for instance. It will outspot Joshua Humphreys, though, so there's that. Uh, if you look over here at, where is it, main battery, its 8G DPM is more than Shima, but it's nowhere near the level of gearing. So that's made up for by the fact that it does have, I think, one of the highest torpedo DPMs. There's just straight up the highest torpedo DPMs of all special destroyers. I don't remember the values of the tech tree ones off the top of my head. I think Shimakaze still has more. Cabaro has more, by quite a margin actually. There might be like one or two more that has a little bit more, but it's still pretty respectable torpedo DPM. These are gearing torpedoes. They hit decently hard. They're very long range. They have a kind of a long reaction time, but it's kind of like not too bad when you look at some of these other ones. I mean, Lushun has deep water torpedoes, for example, so that's why that's so low. Marceau 8.1, and most of these are like around the same. So it's not good, but it's not like terrible either. But the question is, would you play this over Shima? And I think Shimakaze, if you want to play a torpedo destroyer, you should absolutely play Shima. She has more torpedo DPM to start with. She might not have as much gun DPM, but she does have much harder hitting guns. Japanese HE does hurt a lot when you get shot with it. Uh, and then you do get American smoke, so if you're doing team play divisions, You can make a case for that. But then again, if you're doing that, you could also play Legmod Harugamo, for instance. So the it's kind of a really weird mix of a Shima and a Gearing, where it has a little bit of the strengths of both, but also all of the weaknesses of both. So, and it's also not particularly fast either. I forgot to mention that. And it's just the issue just becomes, unless you're doing team play, you literally might as well just play Shima. First of all, Shima doesn't cost steel. It's just the platform itself is better. It's stealthier. It's faster, and it doesn't have as good smoke. But its smoke is still good enough to use for its team if it needs to, or for itself when it needs to. Uh, the only real use case for this is if you're playing comp, but it's also banned from COTS because it's not available. So you're really only going to use it in clan battles, and then the question becomes, why would you choose this over a Legmod Harugamo? So I think, and initially I was thinking about putting it in B tier, but honestly, thinking about it, putting it in B tier, if we're comparing it to the list I made before, implies that Summers is on the same level as Shima, which it's just not. It's still a fine, I guess it's a fine ship in its own right, but it's just not as good as Shima, I don't think. I could like just call it a weak B tier, but I think it's more in line with being a strong C tier. It does have some things going for it, but there are just other ships that do the same thing but better. Case in point, Shimakaze. So that's going to be it for Summers. Forrest Sherman. Okay, this is about to be a controversial one. I am of the opinion that Sherman is absolute dog. It is just not good. She does. Okay, so let's talk about this. She does one thing and one thing only. She sits and smokes and she farms damage. She's very good at doing that. If you look right here, we look at where is it? Sherman actually has the same HEDPM as Gearing, but when the thing that you have to take into account here is the flight time, 7.4 seconds to 12 kilometers. That is a very, very comfortable flight time. You're going to be able to leverage a lot of your DPM very easily compared to the Gearing. You also have the SAP, which is the highest DPM in the game for SAP as far as destroyers go, which admittedly there's like only 2 destroyers at tier 10 that actually get SAP to begin with. But she has the SAP. It hits really, really hard. She hits really, really often because she has a 1.5 second base reload. But the thing is, she does one thing, which is farming damage. And she's very good at doing that, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with being a damage farmer, but when you look at this right here, look at, hold on. Uh, Whatever. I should have had this pulled up before, but, here we go. If we look at the stats across the board, Forrest Sherman is sitting lower than middle of the pack in terms of win rate. She does have a decent damage compared to some of her other peers. She's sitting at the higher end in terms of average damage. Also has a lot of games played. But the issue is, while she is really good at farming damage, she's just not really winning games because of it. She can, if she can use her DPM to leverage games, but more often than not, where Sherman is just going to be in smoke farming, you're just going to be losing the game because it cannot really open water reliably unless it just gets ignored. It can only really farm from smoke, so it relies on allied spotting, or you have to like take advantage of like gun blooms or something. She's just a really weird. Like she farms damage from smoke. She's very good at doing that. She also has hydro, by the way, to protect her in her smoke. But the issue is that that damage farming doesn't often translate into wins, which is reflected in her win rate being like almost low bottom of the barrel. I mean, it's not like tragic, or at least not as tragic as like down here. And to be fair, it's not that far behind like a bunch of these other ones. I mean, it's not like there's a massive difference between 0.54 and 0.65 or 0.50, but then you can make the same argument for 0.50 compared to 0.54. It's just if she sits on lower down in terms of average win rate, which I think is mainly what holds her back, is that the damage farming that she does not always translate into being able to win the game. You can't often win through farming alone. So, to be fair to Sherman, she is very very good at what she does. But the issue is, like I've just said over and over and over again, like a fucking broken record, is that she just doesn't win games that often because of it. I mean, it obviously helps if she can melt down a cruiser or a battleship that's on her side. Uh, that will help give her team the material advantage. So it definitely has the capability to, but it's just not reflected in the average win rate of the ship. So I'm putting Sherman in C tier. Uh, to be fair, if another destroyer decides like I'm going to kill myself and just tries to gunfight, just straight up gunfight this thing when it has its smoke, or even just in the fucking open, it will definitely outtrade them if that destroyer just sits even slightly broadside and just eats a shit ton of sap damage. So she can do that, but she also is very clunky. She doesn't have a heal. She eats a lot of damage very easily. Her torpedo angles are absolute fucking dog. Like you literally have like about like a on either side of the ship you have a tiny, tiny little hold on, let me show you real quick. Uh like look at that. That is her torpedo firing angles right there. You literally have 3 degrees of firing angles, and then everywhere else you just have absolute zero. So that's kind of tragic. So I'm going to put Sherman in C tier. Next up, Druid. This is one of the ships that I don't actually own. I'm going to get her eventually, but she's really weird. She has no torpedoes at all. She only has 2 front guns. Her only armament is 2 main battery guns at the front of the ship. So she has no rear firing angles at all. And she has British smoke. And I don't actually remember if it gets the Royal Navy Hydro or a normal Hydro. Hold on. Where is it? Druid. Consumables. Propulsion. What is this? Okay, this is the Britain standard British Hydro. So it gets British Hydro, British smoke, and it gets Minotaur guns. I don't think they're the exact same turrets as the Minotaur. They're actually not Minotaur guns, they're 127s. But they basically function like Minotaur guns. She has AP only with a short fuse. She has very fast reload, and that is all she has. She has AP only, 4 guns and 2 turrets at the front, no torpedoes, British smoke, British hydro. How does this translate into playing? Well, she does one thing only, and that is she absolutely fucking murks other destroyers. And she is very, very good at doing that. Because Druid actually has a lower arming threshold for her caliber uh, compared to other ships that have the same caliber weaponry. 12 millimeter arming threshold on 277,000 AP DPM. She absolutely fucking murders other destroyers if they show you even the slightest bit of side. So, Jesus Christ. Almost had to burp there for a second, but she does one thing, and it's murder destroyers, and she's very good at doing that. But the issue is she also has very clear weaknesses where if a larger ship, like a battleship or a large cruiser, or even just a normal cruiser, decides to walk at this thing, there's not a whole lot that it can do about it. It has no torpedoes at all. Its turrets are all situated at the front, so it's really awkward to try and leverage that DPM against whatever it is that's walking at it, because it has to basically be broadside or bow in to get its firepower going on it. It's also not particularly fast, I don't believe. The fact that I don't own this ship is probably showing. Let's see. Hold on. Where is it? 35 knots. Yeah, it's not particularly fast by destroyer standards. She also does not get an engine boost. So, it's kind of awkward. But to be fair, the goal of this ship is to murder destroyers. And she'll often win because of that. Because if you can murder another destroyer that's trying to cap, that's removing torpedo threat from their team. That's removing spotting from the enemy team. That's removing potential smoke from the enemy team. It's just a very, very valuable ship to have, because even though it only does one thing and is very good at it, the one thing that it does is a very impactful thing, and that is reflected in its win rate. It's literally the single highest win rate destroyer in the game at the moment. So, she's very, very strong. I think she's actually kind of underrated. Not many people really like her, and that's to be expected. It is an awkward ship to play. It is definitely an acquired taste, but if we're rating this based off of strength alone, I think Druid honestly deserves B tier. Next up, one of my favorite ships in the entire game, Marceau. This is easy, 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 no ifs, ands, or buts S tier. Marceau is one of the single strongest ships in the entire game. She has the single highest HEDPM of all tier 10 destroyers in the game. She has the second highest AP DPM of all tier 10 destroyers in the entire game. She has weaker torpedoes than the Cabaro, but still about middle of the pack for torpedo DPM. They're slow and they don't do as much damage as Cabaro torpedoes, but at the same time they also have 9 kilometers of range compared to Cabaro's 8, so there's that. And she can still YOLO targets when she has to. But most of the time, she's just going to be fucking ganking things with her best-in-class DPM. She goes 55 knots under speed boost and speed flag, and that speed boost lasts like 4 minutes or something like absolutely fucking absurd, because she has improved French engine boost. She has French saturation, so she eats less damage overall. I already mentioned her crazy gun power. She has Def AA for what that's worth, so she can usually defend herself from carriers okay. I mean, if a carrier is determined to ruin your day, then there's not much you can do about it, but Marceau is also a very, very tough ship to kill, because it is a very, very tough ship to hit, and it also has French saturation. So, she's just. Oh, did I also mention she also has 7 kilometers of concealment? That is also really fucking obscene for all the other strengths that this ship has. 7 kilometer conceal on a ship that goes 55 knots has 250,000 HE French saturation. Like, if this thing decides to run at you, if you don't have like other friendly ships by you to support you, it's just going to absolutely fucking dumpster you. It is a fucking monster to deal with when it's being played by a skilled player. The downside is a very significant one because, unlike Cabaro, she has much floatier shells. They are more similar to US shells like those found on Gearing. They're a little bit better than Gearing, but not by much. But she has much floatier shells than the Cabaro, but she also only has 11.5 kilometers of range anyway, so most of the time you're not going to be far enough away for that to matter, and it is also a thing that with practice you can get better at landing them. But most of the time, I have a bunch of videos on this already, is she's not really farming. She's using her speed and her concealment to get into positions to ambush enemy destroyers and fucking dumpstering them with her crazy DPM. She is literally one of the best ships in the game. I absolutely love this ship. She's just fantastic in every single regard. The only weakness is her shell arcs, but even that is something that you can get used to with practice. So easy S tier for Marceau. Next up, Z42. This is a steel ship. Oh yeah, by the way, I think I forgot to mention what these ships are for. Druid is research points, Sherman is coal, Marceau is coal. I don't remember the exact prices off the top of my head. I think it's 55,000 research points for Druid, 236,000 coal for either Sherman or Marceau, or something similar to that. So, my bad on that one. Z42 is a steel ship that is currently available. She's actually a lot stronger than most people give her credit for. She's honestly a straight upgrade from the Z52. If you have Z52 and then you get your hands on this thing, you're almost never going to want to play the 52 ever again. She's just a straight upgrade. So, what does she have going for her? First of all, she has 10 guns that are 105 millimeters, which is actually a pretty low caliber for tier 10 weaponry. But in typical German fashion, she has improved AP alpha, so she has actually really high AP DPM, even though her caliber is pretty low. If anything shows you side, it's going to get hammered. And then she also has 105 millimeters of gun caliber, which means that, hold on, where is it? Z42. She has an 18 millimeter AP arming threshold. So why is this significant? It's because destroyers have a standard armor of 19 millimeters. So, if destroyers show you side, even non-armored ones, if any destroyer shows you broadside, you're going to absolutely fucking hammer them with your AP. Like, I'm talking like 7K salvos of AP on Darings, Bazans, Marceaus, Kabarovsk especially because it's armored, Ragnar especially because it's armored, Smalland. Like, if any destroyer shows you broadside in this thing, it's going to be in for a world of pain because they will arm your AP. Uh, HE shells are a little bit on the anemic side because in typical German fashion, she pays for her high AP DPM by having really low HE DPM, but at the same time, the AP is going to be your focus anyway. You're not going to be shooting HE a whole lot, so that's fine. You can shoot your AP at the bow and stern of enemy battleships. You can shoot at the superstructure of enemy battleships and still get pens. That car just went way, like, I think their engine just exploded. But anyway, uh, she's overall just really, really good. She has, in typical German fashion, not the highest torpedo DPM. She only has 8 torpedoes, and they don't do a lot of damage in typical German fashion. But and the reason, what makes this ship so incredibly strong, is her consumable loadout. She has short burst smoke generators. These are British smoke screens. They're the ones that have like a 10-second deployment time and the really short dispersion time, but a lot of charges. It's daring smokes. She has an engine boost, standard for destroyers, but she also gets improved German hydro. So she is a very, very strong cap contester, whereas unlike Z52, which is kind of cringe in the sense that its AP will overpen destroyers, it doesn't have the AP arming threshold to leverage its really high AP DPM against destroyers unless they're like slightly angled, but they have to be at like that perfect angle where it's enough to penetrate without overpenning, but also not angled enough to just auto bounce. It's a really awkward situation. Whereas Z52, or Z42 rather, has the 18mm arming threshold. So if any destroyer shows you broadside, no matter what it is, it's going to be in a world of pain. Because this thing's AP just does so much fucking damage to destroyers. So so she's a very good ship at winning games, which is reflected in its average win rate, as you can see. Right there, it actually has a higher win rate than Smalland, which is generally considered to be one of the most OP destroyers in the entire game, and I'll be getting to that later. So, Z42, easy A tier. She is a very strong destroyer. I, I honestly don't think she's quite S tier. I can honestly see some people putting her in S, but to me, putting Z42 next to Marceau just doesn't feel right. So it's a very, very strong A tier, though. Uh, Next up, Trump. Okay, this is going to be an interesting ship because it is the only Dutch destroyer currently in the game that I remember. Its entire gimmick is that it has Dutch airstrikes. That's its entire thing. It has the airstrike armament that you get on Dutch cruisers, except I think it's improved compared to that because the like when you use the airstrike, the like the bombs on like the Golden Lou, for instance, are actually pretty slow and take a fair amount of time to actually fall, whereas Trumps fall at a pretty fast rate. Like when those bombs are dropped and the time they hit the target or hit the water that period of time is a lot shorter on the Trump compared to the Golden Lou. So it's a little bit easier to use in that regard. But the issue is she relies on people being dented enough to push into her. She is a super fucking obnoxious ship to push into because she spams so much HE from her guns. She spams torpedoes downrange like there's no tomorrow, and you're also pushing into those airstrikes. But the airstrikes only have a 10-kilometer range. Her guns are, I believe, 150s actually. Hold on. Uh, Where are they? No, those are the torpedoes. Yeah, these are 150s. These are actually the same guns found on Ragnar, actually. Although they're nowhere near as accurate as Ragnar. They're also missing a little bit of caliber on them, but it doesn't make that big of a difference. But, oh, by the way, Z-42 is a steel ship. This right here is a coal ship. So, so you have this really awkward ship that absolutely relies on people being dented enough to push into you, but at the same time, I did talk about her guns briefly. She has the 150mm guns that are nowhere near as accurate as Ragnar's guns, for instance, but they're still perfectly usable. But the issue is she's a very large ship. She eats a lot of damage very easily. Uh, and she also has absolutely garbage turret angles where you have to sow a lot of broadside in order to get all of your guns firing. So you're going to probably get out-traded a lot by enemy destroyers in this thing because you just have to show so much side to get all your guns firing. And if you angle away to a kite, then all of a sudden you're down to one gun turret and your airstrikes, and airstrikes on destroyers are typically not very reliable. She's a very awkward ship to play, but she relies a lot on everything going right for her. And if anything goes wrong, she's kind of at best. So I think Trump, like, she has strengths. She's super fucking obnoxious to push into, but if there's a single enemy destroyer that can permalite this thing, because it doesn't have the best of concealments, it doesn't have the maneuverability to effectively really open water at closer ranges where she can use her airstrikes. She's very weird. I typically really dislike this ship, to be totally honest. She does have her strengths, but I think she's gonna go into C tier. I think I can at her strongest, she could be like B or maybe even S, but I just don't think she's consistent enough to go there because she relies a lot on things going right for her. So, next up, Haate. I fucking hate this ship. D tier, baby. Next up, Cabaro. Okay, I'm just kidding. Let's talk a few seconds about Haate. First of all, this is one of the ships that's actually going to be getting buffed in 13.1. Her gun reload is going to be going from 4 seconds down to 3.7 seconds, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it actually is. It's a fairly substantial buff in DPM, actually. Hold on. Well, I should have had this pulled up from the get-go. Let's see. She has 193,000 HE DPM at the start, right? And that's at 4 seconds. Can I get this down to 3.7 seconds? No, that's 3.5. Hold on. I really should have had this. I should have had this fucking pulled up from the start. Give me a second. 3 points. Okay, we'll just have to go with this. 3.6 seconds gives us 215,000 HE DPM, and mind you, these are base. These are base values. So her base value is going to go from 193 up to around about 215,000, and then it starts getting buffed up. So she actually might become a very solid gunboat with that buff. Secondly, she also has both smoke and torpedo reload booster, where they currently share a slot and you have to choose between them. But the other buff that this thing is getting is that both of these consumables are going to be in separate slots. So you'll have the repair party, or the damage control party rather. You'll have smoke, engine boost, and torpedo reload booster. And that is going to make her a very solid threat. She'll be able to spam out a lot of torpedoes with that reload booster, and don't forget these are Japanese torpedoes. They do hit very, very hard, have good range, good speed, high damage. It's gonna be really spicy actually. As she currently stands, though, she's just a mix between Harugumo and Shima that gets all of the weaknesses of both, but none of the strengths. It doesn't have the level of DPM that Harugumo gets, but it also doesn't get the level of torpedo DPM that Shima gets, but it still retains Harugumo's clumsy handling and lackluster concealment. So it's not in a very good spot as it is right now, but once these buffs go through, honestly, I can see her being maybe a strong C tier or possibly even a B tier ship when the buffs go through. But as she stands right now, prior to patch 13.1, then she's absolutely going to be in D tier. But if you're watching this video after that point, she honestly, you can consider her a strong C or even possibly a mid-level B, depending on how much those changes actually affect her. And if that happens, then I'll address it in some way, shape, or form. But for right now, she's going in D tier. She's going to be a lot better later on, but right now she's just not. Next up, Khabarovsk. This is the other ship that's going to be getting buffed in 13.1. She's going to have her standard heal replaced by an improved heal. And that alone is nice. It's a step in the right direction because this ship kind of suffers as it is right now. But I'll be honest, I love this ship. It is unironically like one of my most played ships on my account. I think the only ship that's higher than it is Shima. And the only reason Shima's higher is because I have like so many games in like clan battles and COTS with her. But randoms, I think Khabarovsk is one of my most played ships, or just straight up my most played ship, period. But she's just not good in her current state. She has to choose between her smoke or her heal, which there's merit to choosing both. I'm not going to get too much into that, but her main weakness is she got nerfed in like fucking 2017 or like 2016 or something like that. And to this day, almost like, what is it? 2016 to 2024, that's like 8 years later. She has still never gotten that back. And that's significant because she only has 13.5 kilometers of max range, assuming you spec into AFT. You cannot pick range mod with her. And she also has horrendous concealment. And she used to be a very good gunboat, but then Cabaro came along, and then Harugumo exists, Z42 exists, Druid exists. Like, literally so many ships in this current game can just easily dumpster a Khabarovsk. So, I will say that a well-played Khabarovsk can conceivably stand its ground against just about any destroyer in the game, assuming that it's well played. The hard part, though, is that it relies on the enemy kind of playing into her hands, where if the enemy is also really good, all it has to do is just not engage it. Just keep it permalit because it has fucking 9.7 kilometers concealment. Well, I think the best that it can get is like 7.6 kilometers, but even that is a little bit on the tragic side. And then you also have to give up rudder shift to get that, which is also tragic because she has, like, there are unironically battleships in this game that turn better than this thing. Her rudder shift is absolutely fucking tragic, because that's the other thing that got nerfed, was they nerfed her range from like 14.6 or whatever it was before down to 13.5, which is really rough in a game that has a lot of rail guns like Moskvas, Stalingrads, Petros, Nevskys, fucking Shermans that have better flight time than some cruisers. She's also an armored destroyer, which can help or hurt. She does have a 50mm belt, which can shatter even heavy cruiser HE, but you just eat so much armor piercing damage, even from non-AP focused destroyers like Marceau, fucking Smalland, Lushun, ships like those that aren't even AP focused can dumpster this thing with AP because of the armor belt making it eat so much damage. It also doesn't have that much health for a gunboat. It only has where is it? Only has 22,500 health base compared to other gunboats that have like 24,000, fucking 26,000, 25,000. It's I mean, it's better than like Smalland or Z42, but those are kind of more hybrid style destroyers. They focus on guns, but they can do either if they have to. Cabaro also only has 6-kilometer torpedoes that are slow. Admittedly, they do a lot of damage when they hit, but they're basically just almost YOLO torps only. You can like use islands to like cheese people into your torps or whatever if they don't know you're there and they push around the corner into your torpedoes, but that also is really hard to pull off because of your detection. It's just like, honestly, I don't think giving her an improved heal is going to be enough to save everything that's wrong with this ship. It'll definitely help, but it's just not good. There's, even with the buffs, even after this thing gets its improved heal, it's still going to stay in D tier. So, next up, Alvaro de Bazan. I believe that's how that's said. This is, oh, by the way, I keep forgetting this. Coal, it used to be free XP, but it is now a coal ship, and coal ship. So, and this is also a coal ship. Alvaro de Bazan is currently the only Spanish destroyer in the game that, yeah, I think, yeah, it's just straight up the only Spanish destroyer in the game. And it is the first tier 10 ship, to have a funny button. What does that mean? Well, when super ships first came out, a lot of them had a burst fire mode, or what is now commonly known as a funny button. And what this does is it fires, instead of firing in intervals where you go fire, reload, fire, reload, fire, reload, you go fire, 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 and then you have a really long reload. And that's what makes a lot of these super ships so unbelievably broken. But at the same time, Alvaro's funny button is a little bit different, whereas unlike super ship funny buttons that improve the characteristics of the shells themselves, like Humphrey's giving a flat-up damage boost to its HE shells, or Zorki and Yamagiri having improved HE penetration during their funny shells, or something like Conde that has like improved dispersion on its funny shells, or just any number of things. Alvaro has nothing during its funny button. All it has is the burst of like 4 rapid salvos, which admittedly they still hurt, because these are where are they? These are 135mm guns. They do hurt when it hits you, but the problem is that it pays a lot for having that. It has pretty low DPM across the board, I mean, its AP, I guess, is okay. It's not, but it's still like on the less than bottom of the pack, I believe. Yeah. Uh, she has very low HE DPM. She has less than fucking Kabarov's, which I already shat on that ship enough, but it barely has more than Z42, which I already talked about how tragic that HE DPM, because 105 millimeter German AG shells. But I mean, it's not terrible levels of DPM either. I mean, it's at least not Sommers or Tromp levels terrible. But she relies on that burst fire. Her torpedoes are not very good. They're slow. They're like 55 knots. They don't do a huge amount of damage. But she does have that funny button. And that funny button is, I think, the main thing that's keeping her out of D tier. It's not very often that you're going to be using it. You're going to be using her standard firing mode a lot more, probably. But what you do with this thing is you spot an enemy destroyer or let a friendly submarine, another destroyer, or aircraft, or radar spot the destroyer for you. You farm them out for a few normal salvos, and then right when they're going to go dark, you can burst them down and do a very substantial amount of damage. And if you can do that early on to another destroyer, that is going to hurt them a lot. As these are 135 millimeter guns, they do hurt when they hit. So she does have things going for her. I think she's better than Trump, but I also don't think she's better than Sherman. So I'm gonna put her as like a middle of the road C tier. She has things going for her, but she has very clear weaknesses, but she's also not Haate or Cabarov's level tragic either. So next up, Vampire 2. This is a ship that I also do not own right now. This is a research bureau ship that is for 56,000, I think, or it's like 55 or 56,000 research points for this ship. She is a daring class destroyer that belongs to the Commonwealth nation, so you cannot share a captain between daring and vampire, which is a little unfortunate. But Vampire, when you compare it to the Daring, whereas Daring has a 2.8 second reload base, where is it? Vampire 2 has a 2.5 second reload base, and she's actually has more HE DPM than a Harugamo, with only 6 guns compared to Harugamo's 10, just because these things fire so quickly. She also has really high AP DPM in typical Daring class destroyer fashion. But the main thing that sets her apart from her Daring and counterpart in particular is she has the Commonwealth crawling smoke generator, and she has a 5-kilometer hydro, which makes this ship a very, very strong cap contesting ship, where if you don't have radar, you might as well just back out of the cap, because you will not spot this thing when it has its gimmick going. It has its 5-kilometer hydro, it's crawling smoke, so it could just slowly smoke into a cap and then just walk at you. And then there's just nothing you can do about it because it's in smoke. So, and even if you catch it out of smoke, right, it's still probably going to end up out trading you anyway, because it has one of the highest DPMs in the game for tier 10 destroyers. I think it's like literally straight up the 3rd highest HE DPM for tier 10 destroyers, just at all, period, across the board. So she has that going for her. And she also, unlike the Daring, does not get a heal. But that's fine because she retains Royal Navy acceleration, if I remember correctly, because she is a daring hull, and she also has the crawling smoke generator. And even if you do catch her without her smoke, she's likely gonna out DPM you anyway. So honestly, she's a very strong ship. The one weakness is also her biggest strength, and that's that crawling smoke generator. In her strongest scenario, where she can just smoke up and then just farm, literally everything on a side that just pushes into her, and she could just smoke up and just sit there and farm the entire enemy team while another ship spots for her. She's easily a straight up S-tier destroyer, but she's not always going to be able to do that. People aren't always going to push into her. And the issue with her crawling smoke is that you can't turn it off. The issue is that once you pop it, it's going to keep going, and it's going to keep going for like the next minute and a half, or however long it lasts. Hold on. How long does this thing last? 102 seconds. So a little under, or a little over a minute and a half base. Not counting for like smoke module in slot 3. Or the smoke flag that you can run. But the issue is that if you hit that smoke at the wrong time, you cannot turn it off, and it's just going to be broadcasting your position the entire time it's running. Like, people are just going to see this giant fucking fart cloud just chugging along the map like fucking Thomas the Tank Engine, and you're going to be super easy to track because of it. So, that's like, you have to know that you're going to get value out of the smoke when you pop it. Otherwise, it's more of a detriment than it is a asset. But on the flip side, if you do pop it at the right time or at the right moment or in the right situation, she is incredibly powerful. So I think she's definitely a very, like, I think she's at very least B tier, but I honestly think she deserves A tier. I honestly think she's a very strong A tier at that. It's really only once you start dealing with like these types of fuckers, that she might have some problems. But even then, if there's no radar around, she can easily fight a Marceau. She can easily fight a Cabaro. She can easily, well, Z42 does get the improved German hydro with 6 kilometers compared to her 5 kilometers, so it's really only once you start dealing with like these types of fuckers. But like all of these down here, you can pretty comfortably dumpster in a vampire, so you do have to play a little bit more carefully. You don't have the heal that Daring gets, you don't have the burst smokes that Daring gets, but you do get crazy gun power, and you also only get one torpedo launcher, which is noteworthy, but that doesn't really matter too much because if anything's in front of her, she's going to be farming them with her guns anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. They're more Make-A-Wish torpedoes than anything, so there's that. Had to take a fucking sip of my drink there. Next up, Smalland. This is another ship that I do not own. I currently was not playing during the time. Like, I took like a 2-year break from the game at one point. And when I came back, it was like a month or two before Smalland was being yoinked from the shop. And I was like trying desperately to farm up the free XP to buy her, and then she got yoinked, and I was really sad. So that's a bit tragic. But Smalland is easy S tier. If you know what this thing is, you know what this thing is. You'll immediately agree with me. She's absolutely fucking absurd how strong this ship is. She currently has the second highest HE DPM in the game, second only to Marceau. 247,000 HE DPM on only 4 guns because her turrets have a 1.7-second base reload. She has a super speed boost. She has a she has a fucking heal, not an improved heal, just a regular heal. She also gets fucking radar for some fucking reason. She has a 7.5 kilometer radar with 247,000 HEDPM when the hull has 6.1 kilometers of concealment. I mean, you tell me. Her torpedoes are standard European torpedoes. They are fast, but they don't do a lot of damage. Where is it? Really low torpedo DPM actually, like straight up worse torpedo DPM than a Sherman. But at the same time, you have literally one of the best gunboat destroyers in this entire game. She has the second highest HE DPM in the game, one of the highest AP DPMs in the game. Hold on. Yeah, 296,000. Not that far behind some of these other ones. So, easy S tier. She has the super speed boost. She has the heal. She does not get smoke, which is a little unfortunate. But, I mean, does she really need smoke when she's going to be out trading everything anyway? It's just absolutely fucking ridiculous. Really, there's only a few ships that are really capable of comfortably dumpstering a Smalland. One of them is Ragnar. Ragnar, easy S tier. You had a few strong ones. Smalland was for free XP. Ragnar is a steel ship like the Z42. And what makes Ragnar so strong is she has extremely accurate guns. She only has 4 guns. She doesn't have as much DPM as some of these other ones. She's actually has pretty anemic DPM if I'm being totally honest. But what sets her DPM apart from something like Z42, Bazan, or Cabaro, for instance, is that her HE shells have 30 millimeters of penetration base. Where is it? Hold on. Sigma flight time. Like, is it not even on here? Hold on, wait. H HE shells. It's on here somewhere. Penetration, 30 millimeters. Okay. So, she also gets 11% fire chance because these are 152 millimeter guns. She has radar, just like Smalland, even though Ragnar doesn't get the 6.1 kilometer conceal that Smalland enjoys. She has 7.5 kilometer conceal, which happens to match her radar range of 7.5 kilometers. She also has a heal. She has an absurd health pool, so that heal will give her a lot of value per use. It is worth noting she also has no torpedoes whatsoever. She has, what was the other thing? She has no smoke screen, no torpedoes, but she also has an armor belt, which can very easily help her out-trade other destroyers, because their HE is just going to shatter. But the thing is, her armor belt is only 25 millimeters, unlike Cabarov's that is 50 millimeters and can arm cruiser AP. Ragnar armor belt is typically not thick enough to actually arm cruiser AP unless you're angled. So there's that. And Ragnar is one of the few ships that can comfortably dumpster a Smalland for that reason. She has very good shell ballistics. She has the speed boost, the heal, massive health pool, the radar. She's honestly a ship that has a tool to deal with just about anything that gets thrown at her. She has actually really strong AA for a destroyer. She lacks def AA, but just the base values are pretty strong at like for a destroyer. Emphasis on the on that phrase for a destroyer, but Uh, she just has a tool to deal with just about anything. The only weakness is submarines, because of course it is. Ragnar ASW is unironically, I think, one of the single worst ASWs in the entire game. You only get four depth charges per launch that do a measly 2,000 damage each, maximum, and they're forward firing, so they're super fucking awkward to use. Because when you're trying to when you're trying to get on top of the submarine to depth charge them, all of a sudden you either just launch your depth charge way ahead because you didn't realize that you have forward firing depth charges, or you're like turning around trying to avoid getting shotgunned by the submarine you're chasing, and then all of a sudden your depth charge is just going flying all over the fucking place, uh, which is everywhere, typically everywhere except where the sub is, and then you only get four depth charges per thing that do a pitiful amount of damage. It's actually really fucking tragic, but even then, she has tools for just about everything else. She has strong AA for a destroyer. Most carriers typically won't focus you unless they don't have a choice. She has the fire chance to burn battleships with. She has HE pen to pen the CAs with while you burn them. And she has radar for the destroyers that are out spotting her. So very, very strong, easy S tier ship in the Ragnar. Next up, Lushun. I also do not have this ship because I don't want to give Wargaming money for the dockyard when she was available, and I also couldn't be bothered to grind. Ain't that right, Stu? No? Okay. But Lushun, shut the fuck up. Lushun is a very good destroyer, although she's not perfect. She has very strong gun power for the amount of guns that she has. Where is it? 197,000 HE is actually not as high as most people think, and not as high as one might think for having a 1.7 second base reload. But the thing is, she has 5.5 kilometer hydro, she has 5.8 kilometer concealment, and she has absurd DPM for the concealment that she has, which is a very strong anti-destroyer uh anti-destroyer cap contesting style ship. But at the same time, she does have a zombie heal, but it's not like the Nustrashimi heal, where you press a button and then you just get a ton of health back really, really quickly. It's like the Sevastopol heal that takes like fucking 60 seconds or something to fully heal you up. So your heal, if you pop it during a gunfight, it's not going to be able to keep up with any damage that you're taking. Which, if you're fighting something like a Smalland, a Marceau, a Vampire, you're showing broadside to a Z42, a Druid, or a Sherman, something like that, your heal is not going to keep up, and you're probably going to lose that engagement because you are a Nustrashimi hole. You do eat a lot of damage really, really quickly, and uh and it's just a little bit on the tragic side, but at the same time, she is still a very strong cap contesting ship because of her concealment. She does have a speed boost if I remember correctly. Actually, hold on, we'll just check that real quick. I'm pretty sure it does get a speed boost. That's pretty No, it does not actually. Not on. So unlike the Nustrashimi, it does not have a speed boost, so that makes it even more susceptible to eating a lot of damage really, really quickly. So that's a little bit tragic. I think she does have very, very defined strengths, but she's also very, very defined weaknesses. So I think she's very good at what she does. She's a very strong cap contesting destroyer, which, by the way, she's also a very good anti-surface ship destroyer as well, aside from other destroyers, because she does have the deep water torpedoes that I talked about very, very briefly earlier. Where are they? Uh, Lashun. 4.6 second reaction time, 11 kilometers of range, okay DPM for the torpedoes. Pretty tragic reload time on it, but it's still better than like Haate. That's actually really fucking tragic. But Lashun, she's just a really solid package. I don't I don't think she's as good as Z42 at cap contesting because she doesn't have the smoke. She's not as good as Vampire 2 at cap contesting because she doesn't have smoke. Even though she does have better hydro than the Vampire, she doesn't have as good hydro as the Z42, but she also, unlike both, she does lacks the smoke of either. And she also lacks the smoke of Druid. But then she's also not at the same level as Summers, Sherman, Bazan, or Trump. She's a solid B tier. I don't think she deserves A tier because putting her in A tier implies that she's as good as these two, which I just don't see that. And then last up is Paulo Amelo, and I'm sure I'm gonna address the elephant in the room. First of all, yes, I know this ship is tier 9, and I'm sure you've been looking at this ship in the all video, looking at this, thinking like, oh, I'm sure you might not even finished it before you typed your like, oh, Paulo Amelo is tier 9 comments, but it's my list, so I can do what I want. So I'm putting Paulo Amelo in here just because she gets a super, super special dishonorable mention for being absolutely fucking tragic. She actually deserves. Hold on. She actually deserves her own her own tier below fucking below D tier. It's going to be super F. It's like absolutely fucking tragic how unbelievably dog this ship is. So I'm sure everyone has heard the whole YOLO Emilio memes, and that is the single biggest issue with this ship. It is a ship made by dogs for dogs to play like dogs. It is fucking tragic because it literally actively rewards people for throwing their ships away for the sake of fucking damage, which has absolutely no place in this fucking game. You should absolutely, under no circumstances, ever be incentivized or even rewarded for literally straight up throwing your ship away for the sake of doing a bit of damage to one or maybe two enemies. It is absolutely fucking tragic. And let's not even forget, there's so much radar and hydro and other destroyers around to counter this thing, so it's probably not even going to get that yellow off anyway. Uh, and then it also, if it does face check like a Vampire, a Z42, a Lushun, a Sherman, a Marceau, a fucking Gdansk, a Harugamo, any of these types of ships, she's going to get absolutely fucking dumpstered because she has a 9.4 second reload on her guns. I don't remember if that's base or not, or if that's just because of the build that I use on her. But hold on, let me check that real quick. Let's see. Even worse, it's fucking 10.7 second reload. She has 87,000 HE It is absolutely fucking tragic. It's just so unbelievably dog that everything this ship stands for is throw your ship away for damage, but then she can't even do that. It's literally just straight up fucking unbelievably tragic. You should never ever buy this ship. You should never consider buying this ship. You should only ever laugh at the people you see who are in fact dented enough to spend their hard-earned research points on this fucking pile of dog shit that incentivizes dogs to throw their ships away for damage like fucking dogs. And then they can't even do that, and then they die or do absolutely fucking nothing because they're playing a dog ship for fucking dogs. It is fucking atrocious. So, anyway, goddamn, my fucking throat got dry after that fucking rant, but I think I've made the point pretty clear on exactly what I think of this ship, and I've included it in this list because it is so tragic that it gets a special honorable mention, or I guess dishonorable mention, for being fucking atrocious. So that is going to be it for my tier list of special destroyers. Oh, by the way, Lushun is a dockyard ship. Ragnar's a steel ship. Smalland was a free XP ship, but it's been removed, so you can only get it through Santa crates. I think I've covered all the rest of them. This is a Research Bureau ship that you should never buy. Buy, like, fucking Vampire 2 instead. Buy fucking Ohio. Buy Druid. Like, literally, a fucking Sevastopol is a better use. Like, no, spending your fucking research points on signal flags is a better use of your points than spending it on this. So, anyway, that is going to do it for my tier list of special destroyers. I don't think I went as in-depth as I could have. My throat kind of started drying out. You might have been able to tell during the video, like, towards this the later stretch of it, and I didn't want to, not be able to talk for the rest of the day, so I tried to cover things relatively thoroughly, but still cover, like, all the major points. I think I covered just about everything of importance about each of these ships, though. There may be, like, a couple of small nuances, ship to ship, but I think I covered, like, all the most important stuff. So that is going to do it for this video. I hope this video has been helpful, and for you to decide what you want to spend your resources on. And that is going to be it. I will see you tomorrow.